Hi, this is Peggy from WAR. So today our guest is Dubie Cunningham. She's a partner at Scale Up Ventures. So prior to joining the VC world full-time, Dubie was leading innovation for a large Canadian bank. So she's going to be able to provide us great insights from both sides of the fence. Thank you so much, Dubie, for being with us today. It's great to have you.
Thank you for having me.
My pleasure, and thank you for filling in the survey as well. So let's get going. So first question, from your perspective, what are the major lasting impacts that COVID will have on the financial services industry?
For me, there will be broad reaching. There will be lots of changes and lots of things that will stay with us for many years to come. But I think one of the sectors that will be the longest and the deepest impact is small business. I think from all areas, from the entrepreneur's perspective, many entrepreneurs will be very reluctant to put themselves at risk or start new businesses. And, contemplating what will those businesses be. We have yet to see all the fallout of the current businesses.
Yeah.
From the financial services perspective, if you're a lender, and I'm not sure if you took a look at all the results calls last week. I was on all the banks' results calls. I mean, the hits that the banks have taken in this sector, the predicted losses are staggering, really. So banks will be very reluctant. However, I don't think that means that banks are going to try to exit this asset class or this sector. I think that what they are going to try and do is figure out how to reinvent themselves in this sector. And I've already been speaking to some of the banks about how to add more value services. So maybe the bank's revenue might not be necessarily in lending. Maybe it'll be in some kind of fee-based services. So I think there you're going to see a lot of changes, maybe some for the better, but a lot of some for the worse, I would say, in terms of entrepreneurs being able to raise capital or get loans to start their businesses. I don't subscribe to the Armageddon or the things will never be the same. A lot of people are saying things will never be the same. And I, although, when the COVID first hit, I must say, I was pretty shocked. But I do think back to, and I'm aging myself a little bit, I did work in 9/11 on Wall Street for the same bank that I was the head of innovation for. And I was literally standing physically on the roof of 2 Wall Street, looking over where the Twin Towers had been. And there was still, smoke rising. I had been accompanied by guys with machine guns, soldiers with machine guns to do the work. And I remember standing there thinking, the world will never be the same. We will never fly or the same, or there won't be any travel or all, so all the sort of same things people are saying right now. We'll never feel safe, and sure enough, we recovered. We recovered as an economy. We personally recovered. I mean, there is a wound there that was left from that experience that we all have if we were there at the time, or adults at the time. So there will be one from COVID, I believe, but I don't subscribe to the, it's all over and there'll never be Broadway. I myself plan to go to Broadway, be back to Broadway one day, and hopefully
Soon as you can.
Yeah, not on Broadway, watching Broadway.
But the lending is something that's coming, because how do you assess credit worthiness? We were already not very good at assessing credit worthiness, let's be honest. But now you're adding this massive uncertainty in terms of, okay, there is a lockdown. Is it a business that can even, be surviving that? So in terms of regulation, do you see additional regulations being passed following COVID-19?
I do, and I actually see this as another area. There'll be broad-reaching questions and changes. So, OSFI has already made some changes to liquidity, specifically in this crisis mode. The banks all have, crisis planning and stress testing that they were planning for, but nobody planned for this, this specific scenario. So now everybody will revisit how to absorb the actual impact and what best regulatory changes are going to be. But I think there's going to be other questions. Like, for example, my elderly parents, 85 and 96, right at the pandemic hit, and they're told they have to come into the branch to discuss their portfolio, which of course consists of mutual funds.
Yeah, yeah.
Horrible, terrible mutual funds. So therein too, I'm sort of predicting, what will the changes be to sales practices and pension funds as an example. All their liquidity numbers are all out of whack. Again, not anticipating this particular scenario. So you're going to see those in financial services. You're obviously going to see, PIPEDA and HIPAA more on the medical side as that all transforms. But these questions of privacy and information, this will all bubble up again and be interconnected in terms of what can we share, contact tracing, those kinds of things. So I think there'll be broad, analysis and changes across the board for sure.
So that's a great transition to the global financial order or global financial stability. So, or instability. What do you see coming for us in that context, more macro, I would say?
Yeah, similar to I don't believe in the doom and gloom scenario. I think globally, the macro level stability will return, and I think you see it you already see it in the markets restabilizing. I know just specifically today we're on another dip, but overall you see that the calibration and stability of markets returning. So that doesn't worry me as much. I think that there's certain industries that were like their business models were questionable, that are now going to accelerate the whatever change they needed to go through. Department stores, for an example, those were sort of starting to move into dinosaur mode. Universities, my daughter is grade 12, and not only did her grade 12 graduation kind of get all screwed up, now she's trying to figure out how to go to university, where to go to university, and she really wanted to go to London, England, right? Well, very, very expensive. So is the US. I myself didn't even realize till we went on, checked out the universities last fall, that US tuition's $80,000 US. So because we're so lucky here in Canada with tuitions, but that they're basically a business. It's an industry. They rely on a huge percentage, some as much as 60% on Asian students, as an example. These business models, and value of what they're providing, now it comes to the surface. Becomes obvious that cost versus benefit may not be there. So things like that, even Facebook, what's the value there really? So it's kind of all these questions going to bubble up sooner, I think, for certain industries.
Yeah, that's well, and that brings me to the next question. So in terms of competitive positioning, what do you see in terms of resetting? Who are going to be the winners? Who are going to be the losers? Is Facebook, for example, going to the financial services industry as a winner? So what do you see in your little crystal ball?
I hate to say it, this is going to be very unpopular, but I do see some of the bigger, the giants becoming even stronger. I wish I could say that this is going to mean that the challengers will be stronger, but I actually think it's the opposite. I think some of the global bigger banks will come out even stronger, and I think some of those challenger banks, we've already seen it in down rounds and funding, will definitely struggle. So I think that from a competitive perspective, at least in the short term, the bigger guys will do better. I do think companies, even the large companies like, let's say, an Amazon, will also get stronger, and if played right, will enter into healthcare services. I do predict, I'm stealing this prediction from Professor Scott Galloway, but I do think Amazon AWS will spin out. I think Amazon will become big enough that they will have to figure out a way to break themselves apart. So I do think there'll naturally be lots of competitive changes, but I do think the smaller players will struggle, and we've seen this in venture. Right now, the general belief is that if you don't have 18 months cash in the treasury, you're going to have a hard time if you're a fintech.
Exactly, and I absolutely agree with your analysis, and the fact that bigger banks is going to be actually the winners from that situation. It's interesting to see in the US some of the regional banks have done a good job because they've been able to really help their clients. I think in the banking world we tend to forget that actually we're here to help the client. I don't know how long that is going to be enough to survive all the digital transformation that they need to go through. So talking about transformation, where do you think the financial institutions, the traditional financial institutions, are actually going?
I think, again, short term, I think things like open banking, those that were, really being more aggressive in innovation, open banking, that's kind of stuff might get pushed out at least a few quarters. I think you'll see a retrenching in concepts that we used to call outsourcing, an old school concept, robotic process automation, really fancy words for cost cutting. How can we gain efficiencies? Because if revenue isn't coming in the door, what's another way to make more of our asset base, whether it be people or technology, all those things. Oh, there's a lot of noise. Okay. Oh, it's gone. Great. Yeah, so I think all of those kinds of things will be their focus, and then that I think creates a lot of opportunities for the tech sector if they can step in and service that need. But I'm already seeing that need. The company that I'm on the board of, Canalist, is a Vancouver-based capital markets fintech. They provide models, financial services models for 4,000 equity tickers in North America. So in effect, augmenting the efficiencies of buy side and sell sides of hedge funds and asset managers. Through the COVID crisis, we've seen their sales increase dramatically. So there's a live example of things we're going to see the financial services industry gravitate towards.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think the outsourcing, regardless of how we call it and what is the fancy name, is going to really go back in fashion. But also when you look at large FIs, we both worked at large FIs, a lot of the work that is done in this financial institution shouldn't be done there. It's just that historically they added and they always answer to a problem by doing it in-house, whether developing the technology, whether adding the people and the processes, even if it doesn't make any sense. So I think that's going to be a good wake-up call to take a step back and think back to your example with Catalyst. Does it even make sense we're doing that in-house? Does it bring us enough competitive advantage? And I would say 80% of the time, the answer is no. It doesn't bring you any competitive advantage. It's just historical, So I'm really looking forward to see if and to what extent the FI is going to have the guts to go through this transformation process, which is deeper than the usual cost cutting that you see that is superficial. So I'm with you on that one. So
I'll give you another example of that from and I've worked with all the financial institutions in my career. Even when they buy a piece of technology or software off the shelf, they customize it or they customize it and they develop 10 instances of it internally. I think you're going to see practices like that highly scrutinized as part of its transformation. Why do we need 10 instances of Salesforce as an example? Are the wealth management teams so special, so different than the high net worth teams or whatever reason, whatever historical reason, as you said, that they have these kinds of setup. That'll all become very scrutinized, a lot of rationalization, and looking at why, questioning why practices were done. And these are huge numbers. I mean, most of the Canadian banks are spending $2 billion, $3 billion per year, and just in external supplier context. So there's a lot of money and activity and that kind of technology that'll happen. It is already happening with the bank.
And you know, again, to your point, we're talking very large pool of money. The question I have is who's going to be the first one to have the guts to say, okay, I'm changing the model. I'm not just cutting 5%, 10% left, right, and center, which we've seen for the last 20 years. It's really turning the model on the head and realizing that all these practices didn't make sense. The challenge is that it always makes sense from a personal agenda perspective, from one person. You're the head of that department, you want 200 people because you're going to get your SVP title secure for the next 10 years, you know? So how strong are they going to be in their belief that this is the right thing to do and that it's a matter of survival? You know, we'll see. That's interesting. So last question, which is more personal. So regarding your own COVID transformation, so what old habits were replaced by new habits, and what is the new Dubie post-COVID looking like?
Well, I have to say, I confess that I'm I'm a mother of four kids, an executive, and a very busy schedule normally, and I must say that I normally look at my oven as like storage, a large storage. Has a couple of doors.
Yeah.
General sense of what it's for, but I don't usually, I take out a lot of food. Okay. Prepared food is kind of the way I get by. But because that hasn't been possible, I have had to figure out how to cook and prepare food and make food interesting, because now it's 3 meals a day, every day.
Yeah.
That has been my renaissance, is trying to figure out how to do that, and I really like it, and I appreciate cooking much more than I ever thought. It's actually a lot of fun, and the kids get in on it, and we bake and all that. So I have to say that's been the best part of COVID in my personal transformation.
Oh, well, that's great. I mean, that's a good, we had different type of things, like I've been into yoga, like there is no tomorrow, and everyone is doing his thing. And it seems to be like cooking is really coming up many times. I think everyone is packing this few pounds by home cooking.
Yeah.
Yeah. But thank you so much for being here. Like that was lovely, as always, great insights. This ability to marry the financial institutions and the investor view is super helpful. So thank you so much for taking the time with me.
Thank you very much. I hope to see you soon.
I will see you soon. Thank you so much. Have a great day. Take care. Bye.
Bye.